Dale como es, dale como es.
Arriba las palmas.
Dale pa' que aprendas, dale como es.
Esa pelota, pelotón.
There you go.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. Good afternoon, former First Lady and Doctor, and my colleagues here, pressmen. We thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. This is something that will go a long way to impact us in a different way. We have one belief, and that belief is that anything that is unrecognized is unrewarded, and anything that is unrewarded is uncelebrated, and anything that is uncelebrated and unrewarded eventually lives our lives. It's been 33 years now. We were little children, some of us were learning how to live our lives, and at that time you gave us the opportunity to go and study miles away across the Atlantic. We've been through a few struggles, but as it were, just like a seed planted, our struggles have turned out to be victories, successes. And today, as we sit here, we can't overlook the fact that it was someone who engineered and gave us the opportunity. So we are here today based on the principles of law of recognition. We want to express our various sentiments and gratitude to you.
I've made it a point, to be advocating for continuation financial support for that school in Cuba, especially from the oil-producing countries on the continent, because of the skill that was imparted, to the young ones, to you folks. But more than the skill was the solid integrity that came with it. I keep saying quite often that we were looking for people of integrity in a lot of establishments. They should just go looking for some of the students who were trained in Cuba.
A country's human resource, it has been argued, is a greatest asset. What's more, for a developing country like ours, with a doctor-patient ratio of 1:10,170, as compared to Cuba, another developing country, which has a doctor-patient ratio of 1:155. The need to pay urgent attention to our human resource development cannot be overemphasized. It has always been the hallmark of visionary leaders the world over to carefully, and by that I mean statistically, plan, nurture, and harness the human resource potential of their people in order to ensure a steady, accelerated, and sustained growth and development of the countries they lead. If well planned, executed, harnessed, monitored, and evaluated, foreign scholarship projects could serve as a catalyst for the rapid development of human capital, especially for a developing country like ours, due to the obvious advantages they present. It would be recalled that in August 1983, amidst protests, unfounded allegations, and vile rumors from a section of Ghanaians, some 609 young Ghanaian students were shipped off to Cuba under the leadership of Flight Lieutenant John Rawlings, the then chairman of the Provisional National Defense Council, to start what later became known as the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial School, ESBEC number 22, on the Isle of Youth in Cuba, under the Ghana-Cuba Scholarship Program. Over the last 30 years, more than 2,000 Ghanaian students, mostly brilliant but needy students, drawn from every nook and cranny of our country, have benefited from Ghana government scholarships to Cuba and graduated from various institutions as medical doctors, nurses, pharmacists, biomedical scientists, veterinary doctors, agronomists, accountants, economists, engineers, statisticians, computer scientists, etc. In spite of the initial integration challenges faced, they have over the years retained in their numbers to contribute significantly their quota to nation building, while their compatriots abroad have equally excelled in their various fields of endeavor. It is therefore a great honor and privilege to have this unique opportunity to interview the main architect and promoter of the Cuban Scholarship Project, His Excellency Flight Lieutenant John Rawlings, former President of the Republic of Ghana, under whose courageous leadership this crucial human capital development project was initiated and sustained. Ladies and gentlemen, may I therefore crave your indulgence with a round of applause as I welcome once again to this interview His Excellency Flight Lieutenant John Rawlings and Nana Konadu Agyemang Rawlings. Thank you. So, sir and madam, to the questions. The first is, first of all, how did the Cuban Scholarship Program come about? I mean, how was the whole idea of sending Ghanaian students to Cuba conceived? Let me add that especially in the early 1980s, where friendship with Cuba was not so much of a popular idea as far as, and it was frowned upon by the West and even a section of Ghanaians.
All I know is that there was a personal relationship between Comrade Fidel Castro, Comandante, and the chairman of the PNDC, my husband, Flight Lieutenant J.J. Rawlings. And so when the program was decided on, I just jumped in to help, to make sure that needy children got the opportunity to actually go on these courses, realizing the fact that we had entered a situation in Ghana where there was hardly any food for children to eat, let alone the rest of the family. There was education had gone, from good education to almost nothing. Health situation was in tatters. Roads had potholes. In fact, cemeteries more than potholes. It was like nothing seemed to be working in Ghana. And it was also at a time when the IMF had declared us a collapsed state. The World Bank said that there's no way that a country like Ghana can rise up again. So we had so many things against us that for this program to have gone the way it went, it must have taken a lot of courage from the leadership, a lot of enthusiasm from those of us who were supporting it, and a lot of trust from the parents who allowed their children to go. And indeed, camaraderie of the people who had invited us to bring our children to be educated.
Because it's wonderful to be part of what is happening. It has been said that the future only belongs to those who don't forget their past. And coming to thank the founders of such a program is a laudable thing that you have done. Because I believe there were groups that went to the Soviet Union, the Ukraines, and different parts of the world. But to know that you have remembered 30 to 33 years ago what happened to you and what it has done for you, it is just a welcome idea. We really congratulate you all for remembering, Mr. Chairman. Many people do things after somebody has passed away, but this is a living legend you are coming to meet, and I pray that you pass this on. The comradeship, the togetherness you had in Cuba should be brought back home. I was telling Mr. Chairman that I met a lot of Cubans, Ghanaians who went to school in Cuba, living in Florida now. Some are architects, some are doctors, lawyers, you name it. And when I heard you were coming, I thank him very much for making me part of this historical event.
If you're looking for a society with a serious sense of purpose, I think Cuba was one such place. I do also recall in those days, long before Cuba even gained a name as a very serious boxing and athletic country, Ghana was the leading country from the developed world. And it was more because the featherweight belonged to us in terms of when you put together our size, the IQ, etc., you will find the featherweight actually just like in the past how the heavyweight could or would belong to the U.S. You know, but I'm saying that the country was really rotten. Things were rotten in those days, and for almost 2 years, some of us were wondering what to do. I gave a student a lift one morning when I was driving to Bamako, and while people used to be very frightened about saying things, I wasn't. You see what I mean? I would. And I was interviewing this student who was with me in the car when he used the word moral revolution. He just, put it into words for me. And I do recall when I came into office, I used to say, the very tool that will be required to pluck out, the rusty, nails, etc., are just as rusty. So we will need tools, that are fit. When you look back in those days, our uncles didn't go beyond what we used to call Standard 7 in those days. And yet, they were very serious-minded people. We had ended up with so many universities over time, but the graduates who were being churned out were a little too superficial. They lacked the essence, they lacked substance, spiritual substance. So, in effect, I was looking around for, some place or people who could rebuild spiritual essence in our people. And Cuba was a shining example. A country that has stood up, to a mighty power like the U.S. all those years and had excelled, especially in the skill of providing some of the finest medical, personnel. Besides, they were not saddled with the kind of problem we had, what I'd call the unemployables, where students would go, probably gain their A levels, but possibly there wouldn't be enough room in the universities for them to enter the university, and earn the graduate, become a degree holder of some sort. And in a situation like this, with that little education, they are misfits. They can't enter a place to do any work because they don't have the final ultimate skill. Apart from sending them to a place like that, because A man who has no political purpose in life is a waste of time. It becomes a liability to his society. Much as we did everything possible to send some of you over, I mean, we had 10 times as much, the number still here. And that's why one did not hesitate to establish the Northern Development University.
The intention of the government of the day with regard to the courses offered by the beneficiaries of the scholarship, and then the integration of the returning graduates into the mainstream of the Ghanaian economy.
We're going through a revolution, and you need the sciences, the technical skills, and all that to be able to grow the country. And so most of the topics or the subjects were areas where it had direct relationship to human development, human life-saving subjects, and then economic development. I believe that really was the key. But as the students went on their courses, or went for the courses, there was a team that was responsible for putting together their integration when they start coming back. In between all this, people were removed from those committees, changes were made because somebody wanted to control the Cuban program and so on. So it actually disrupted how people should have been received and where they were going to put those who have come back from their training. I was one of the major people complaining all the time. I turned into a complainant, and the senior people who were working with the chairman at the time felt that I was interfering. And at one point, I remember Captain calling me and telling me, look, you seem to be interfering with this Cuban program, so we want you out. So that was it. But when students started coming back, I would meet some of them and they would say, these are the problems. We've been here for 6 months. We've been here for a year. Nothing is happening. So I sit with them and I write their reports, and then I present the reports. So we did very well in sending the students, but I think that we fell short in integrating the students into an economy that had started becoming buoyant and, becoming stronger. And we still needed the doctors, we needed the dentists, we needed the pharmacists, we needed the engineers, and so on. But somehow there was a blockage in some of the leading members of the PNDC as to, the program and its effect that it would have on Ghana. As
Just a little follow-up.
my husband just said.
Was there a plan in place? Because there is
Originally, yes. Originally, yes. And I think that there were a number of problems, either some counter coups and, those things kind of destabilized things a bit. So people who were actually in the forefront of being in charge of receiving the students when they come back, fully qualified, were part of the group that was part of the trying to overthrow the PNDC. So that really just shook everything, and new people were put in charge. I remember Mr. Kojo Hazel became then the focal point. I was liaising with him a lot, but then they decided to move the program into the Ministry of Education. And I objected to it because, first of all, the Ministry of Education objected to even the students going to Cuba. But it's one thing to object and not be in the forefront of issues to be able to change anything. It's another thing to be there to be able to change things. I wasn't able to change anything. I just was trying from the background, which happened as it was. Yeah.
Some of them were carrying their dirty prejudices from the past. So, and they had difficulties having to work with you folks. And they were holding us to ransom also. And I pushed to make sure that we flooded as many areas as possible with Cuban trained doctors, with Cuban doctors. And then especially when you guys came in, as you moved into, yes, what do you call it? You got, you were fitted into the establishment. It took a long time. You see, there's the National Theatre. At the time it was built, it was the most modern, ultra-modern, structure in the country. And that thing is what changed the mentality of Ghanaians a little bit towards the Eastern Bloc. And especially when they build those things using bamboo strips. I remember how the Guinean troops used to be a lot more impressive with their Sterling weapons, the rockets. And we had no such thing. And the effort I was trying to make to get some of our commanders to visit China and see things for themselves. It took 10 years. True. I'm not exaggerating. 10 years for such a visit to take place. And I remember that commander very well. And as he got back, how impressed he was. And this was after they had seen the kind of, the efficiency of those rockets in Liberia. 10 years? Unbelievable, Chief.
Judging by your own personal expectation of the Cuban Scholarship Project and the results you see today, would you consider the program as a whole a success or a failure?
It's been a great success, and it would have been an even greater success if we were utilizing them to extracting or exacting out of them.
On hindsight, what would you have done differently about the Cuban Scholarship Program? And what advice would you have for current and future governments with regard to major foreign scholarship projects like?
We could have stayed on for another 8 or 16 years just to help consolidate situations well, good, and proper. But some of my comrades were saying, no. It's never been done before. Isn't that what Putin did recently? Who would have been the first to have done it? Yeah. It's never been done. That would have helped to consolidate. Do you understand what I'm saying, Chief? Because quite often we make reference to institutions. Very correct. But the institutions rely on the human factor. And if those human entities are not bold enough to defy that which is wrong, that institution will be weak. Mibwana.
So finally, Your Excellency, what are your most memorable experiences about the Cuban Scholarship Program? And what message will you have for us as we celebrate our 23rd anniversary in August this year?
For the 33rd anniversary, it will be nice for different visible media programs to be done by various groups for Ghanaians to know realistically what actually happened and who you are. That for me is very important because most people don't know. There are young people in my office who will probably not even believe that over 1,000 students went away and to go and study and were brought back because there's no information continuity. There's nothing to explain to young people in the university that you guys are not. You may be in a university, but you're not getting an education because what you're doing in there is just passing through, and so that they get to feel what you are made of and who you are. I would say that my most memorable experience is in just seeing the young people whose parents had brought them to Achimota School for them to be sent on this program. And some of them did not even realize that you have to buy a suitcase to send a child to. So the child has come in just a dress or his shorts and top, and you are sending him away. No soap, no sponge, no towel, not even a small bag. How are they supposed to go? So these are things that sometimes I look back, and it's funny because they must have thought Cuba was next door. They are going to go by car or something, you know. And so not just memorable thoughts, but it also tells us how parents were eager to send their children for education. It also shows that parents, at any cost, would want a child educated to move that child from the position of poverty into a position of just knowing what to do to fend for themselves, moving away from the cycle of poverty in the communities to a position where they can take care of themselves. So these are some of the things that I can say almost off the top of my head. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Some of
You're
the plans
welcome.
we had in mind for that time, I was made to understand that was it.
With the foresight of a seasoned chess player and in pursuance of one of the dreams of Osadifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, after whom you named our great school, ESBEC number 22, on the Isle of Youth in Cuba, you envisioned the human resource needs of our motherland many years down the line and made a strategic move very few could comprehend back then. The bold and courageous decision you took in August 1983 to send hundreds of brilliant but needy Ghanaian students to Cuba on scholarship over the years, even in the midst of the harshest of criticisms from your detractors both home and abroad, remains one of your greatest achievements and indeed an enduring legacy of your tenure as head of state and president of the Republic of Ghana. The seeds you sowed over the past 3 decades have now blossomed into hundreds and hundreds of patriotic, hardworking and pragmatic professionals, contributing immensely in various sectors and fields of endeavor, both home and abroad. On behalf of all those whose lives you have touched directly and indirectly over the past several decades through the Cuban Scholarship Project, we, the members of the Cuban Trained Graduates Association, popularly known as ESBECANs, would like to say a big thank you to you for making such a monumental difference in our lives. Ayiko Omampeni Rawlings, Odipaya Adia,
The one I got of Baba, Piano.
On behalf of all Cuban Trained Graduates that you help to nurture, we present to you this plaque. That anytime you look at it, it is from the bottom of our heart. We express our deepest and profound gratitude for what you stand for, and we'll continue to uphold your work.
I never had a chance to say thank you to her. I'd like to thank you for all that she's made.
So, thank you very much.
Eso es algo bien sencillo, sin ninguna complicación, pero con tremendo sabor. Aprende del estribillo que dice: dale como es, dale como es, dale pa' que aprendas, dale como es, ahí, dale como es, dale como es, dale pa' que aprendas, dale como es. Arriba con la palma.